All right, we're back, and it's COMP125. It's client-side web development, and here at Centennial College in the summer 2016 semester. I didn't say all this stuff last time. And it's week 8, part 2 of our broadcast. We were just talking about how to get date and time. It's very simple. We just broke it down to date and time. This is pretty ugly, though, right? Like, I mean, if I was going to do a new date, and I want to get my hours, minutes, and seconds, and I want to get it properly formatted into a nice string, and I want to do it over and over again. Maybe I want to use my date time somewhere else, right? What do I need? A function, right? And the function is going to have a return value that returns a string in the format that I want it, like this, right? That I'm going to populate right in here where it says current time, right? All right, well, let's make a current time function. So we'll do that. So we'll say function. We'll call it get current time, right? And we'll pass in a time value, right? So it'll be like a date value. We'll call it date. And inside the date value, we're going to say something like this. We're going to say, without knowing that it exists, we'll say date.getHours, right? And that's going to equal this. All this stuff about hours, minutes, and seconds. Actually, let's just do this. We'll just copy this. We'll cut it, actually. Cut it. Put it over here like this. And we'll change now to date. Because date lowercase d doesn't mean anything, right? It's just a variable, right? So date, hours, minutes, and seconds. And then what we're going to do is this is going to return, this method is going to return our current time. So our total, which is the string value that I want, this thing here, current time. So current time is hours, right? That's the string, right? And I'm going to return current time. So I get a little function, and all this thing does is it returns the current time. I'm just formatting the time right here. And what I want to do in here is I have a new date, and then all I do is I call get current time, and I pass in the date. So I do something like this. I'll do it inline. So get current time, pass in my date, which is now, and then it'll print it out. Is it much different? No. But here's what it looks like. But what I can do with this is I can use my get current time in other places. I don't have to just use it here in this dice roll method. I've separated it. I can reuse this code. This is part of reusability. Maybe I want to get my time somewhere else, right? For example, if I want to calculate the time elapsed between the time I pressed the button the first time and the time I pressed the button the second time, right? So I press the button, I get the date. Press the button again, I get the time elapsed. I can subtract the two values. Or can I? Right? How do I do that? Well, first let's see if this works, right? Because it may not work. We're just thinking that it works, right? So let's just take it out. Roll. Oh man, it says hours is not defined. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to do this. So hours is not defined, it says. For hours, get hours. Here's hours, local hours. Where does it say that hours today? Not save everything? Hours. What was that? I'm just trying to see what it is now. Oh, here. I don't need this now. Here we go. Yeah, 9:55, right? 9:55. So if I go click, 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 I can keep clicking it, and every second it'll keep track of how many seconds have elapsed. If I really want to go into crazy stuff, I can also add in milliseconds. So I can say var milliseconds equal to date.get milliseconds. Oop. Hey, wait a minute. Where's my, how come milliseconds? Well, it doesn't make any sense, right? Because milliseconds, what it does, it calculates, if I go get time, date.get, it understands these things, get current time, get element by ID, get hours, get minutes, get seconds. How come I can't get code hinting on date? What is date seeing like? What does it look like here? Well, it looks like it's an any. Remember, JavaScript has a bunch of different data types. There's number, right? We have number. What else do we have? We have Boolean, right? String, undefined, null. Those are actual data types, right? And any means it could be anything. We don't know. JavaScript can't determine what type it is right now, right? So we don't know. And because it can't determine one type, I don't know. I can put whatever I want in here. It won't complain, but I won't know. So there's two ways to do it. We can look it up. We can do something like now down here, now dot. This will give us the current thing. So get milliseconds is what we want. This one, right? That's a funky way. It's a kind of a trick to get it done. So there, milliseconds. By the way, I did that because I don't want to look it up on the internet, right? So get milliseconds. So milliseconds is there, and what I want to do is I want to put in milliseconds in there too. So I'll do the same thing. I'll set in another one of these at the end, right here. Yes, that's good. And then that's good, Tom. And then milliseconds, right? With a plus, maybe. How about that? How about them apples? There we go. So if I go roll, then I have the milliseconds now too. And you can see that I'm getting funky values for the milliseconds. It's not just to 2 decimal points. I'm getting a bunch of them, like up to 3 decimal points, right? Which is not really what I'm looking for. I'm only looking for, and look at the zeros. My date is like 8. I'm not getting like 0, 8. It's not padding the values when it's lower than a number. I got to fix that. How do I fix those numbers? And I only want 2, not 3, right? I don't care about the third value. I want to truncate it. I only want 2 values. So I want a string length of only 2. This is all like work I got to do here to get a bloody time and date, right? It's crazy. All right, let's take a look. So what I mean is when I get minutes and when I get hours, my hours, there's no padding for the number. I just get the number, hours. And what I want to do is when I get less than 10, I want to pad my hours with a 0 somehow, right? That's what I want to do. And I want to convert my hours, my minutes, my seconds from actual seconds, minutes, and hours to strings. That's what I want to do when I'm using this function, right? So I need to check that. So I'm going to say this. If date.getHours, right, as an example, is less than 10, then I want to pad on a 0. And if it's other than if it's 10 or higher, 10, 11, or 12, right, those are the options, then I don't want to pad a 0. I just want to leave it as is. How do I do that? I'm going to use the shortcut, right? I'm going to say if date.hours, I'm going to do this right here, is less than 10, right? Then what I want to say is then hours is equal to, is the thing, 0 plus date.getHours. What I want to do. Wait. Or if it's not 10, if it's 10 or higher, right? Then I just want to do date.getHours. How am I doing this? This is called the ternary operator, right? Where I use 1 line to do the work of 9 lines. How do I do this? This is what the equation is going to be. This is what it's going to equal to. Hours is going to equal to, this is my check. I say check to see what this condition is, right? Depending on the value of this condition, if this is true or false, if this is true, then this is the value of this. If this is false, then this is the value of this, of hours. That's what I'm saying. So true, anything after the quotation mark is true, after the colon is false, right? I want to do the same thing in this one. So let's do it again. So say date hours. So if date get minutes, right, is less than 10, if it's less than 10 minutes, right, then what I want to do is pad it with zeros. So I want to say 0 plus date.getHours, right? Or, minutes. That'll be okay. Minutes, or date.getMinutes. Okay, here's one thing that I have a problem with right now. I have 2 different values. Bring this over here for a second. Why? Because this one is a string, but this one is a number, right? So the funky thing to probably do if I want to make them all strings is probably do something like this. Sorry to do this, but that's the cheap and dirty way of doing this. Why? Because I convert this automatically to a string. Both sides are strings now, so this is going to be a string, right? See? whereas before it was a number, right? But now I'm padding it with a 0, right? Same thing with get seconds. Let's do the same thing. So again, you can see the format. By the way, this ternary operator works in C#, Java, Python, whatever. Lots of lots of other languages. So plus date dot get seconds, and probably what I want to put put these parentheses in there too, eh? Oh, that won't work. Oh yes. Get seconds. And so I padded it with a 0, so 0 seconds is going to come up. Now the milliseconds is funky, something funky, right? Milliseconds is going to be in hundredths of a second. It's not just, it's not just 2 values. I'm getting 3 values sometimes, right? So let's see how we get the date first. Let's see if this works first, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like after. Okay, let's check this out. So save and roll. Hey, see? 02, right? That's pretty good. Didn't do the 10 though, 03, right? 04. It looks like it's pretty good now. We're getting the zeros, but they're getting the padding that I want in here because I've done this all this calculation right in here. I'm doing this all in this get current time method that I've created, right? But my milliseconds still suck, right? They're terrible, right? So what I want to do is this, right? I want to take those milliseconds, right? And I want to sit there and go, okay, I don't care about the last 3 values, right? So I only want the first 2. I want a substring that only includes the first 2 digits. The last 2 I don't care about. How do I do that? Well, string manipulation again. If I go to substring, so if I go to JavaScript substring, by the way, substring is the actual thing, right? Substring. But for that, I'm showing you how to get it, right? I take the string, I get the substring, and then I have a couple values. What do those values mean, right? And it says the start and the end. So start is required, the position where to start the string. Remember that a string is just an array of characters, right? I want to start at 0. That's the first one. First character is at 0. And the end is the position up to, but not including where to end the extraction. 2. 0, 2. 2 is not going to be included. I'm only going to have a value of a very small amount. So I can do a substring of that. Okay, let's try this out. So substring is the way we're going to do it. Okay, let's go back. Again, there's other solutions to this, ladies and gentlemen, right? So what I want to say is milliseconds then is equal to 2string. I want to do this. I want to convert this to string. So when I convert my milliseconds to string, and if I look at this, I can see that it's still an any because it doesn't understand what date.getMilliseconds does, right? Okay, so now it's a string, and what I want to do is I want to convert this. I want to take a substring of this, right? I want to take a substring of this. I will substring, and I want to do the beginning 0 and the end 2. I see how I'm chaining. Get milliseconds, 2string, substring of this. May not work. Let's see what happens. May have to break it out a little bit. Yeah. Huh? Look at that. What do you think of them apples? And we're not getting a value that's bigger than that. Now we want some separation in here so that we've got the string, but the current time, maybe what I want is my total and then timestamp, something like that. So total, maybe a couple spaces with an arrow, and then we'll say something like timestamp with a space. And now when I press it, it'll be like this. So I can see my roll, and my timestamp is going to change every time I do that. Crazy. Right. This is not an algorithm. What this is just basically taking values, and I want you to always think of it this way. Remember that the interface we always convert them to strings, right? I don't have to keep them as numbers, even though they're numbers. When I populate it into an HTML page, it automatically becomes a string, right? And when I read stuff from the HTML page, I'm reading a string, right? So what I want to do is when I'm using this stuff is I'm converting this little get current time method, which we wrote. By the way, there's other ways of doing this nicer. You know, again, is this the only way to do it? Absolutely not, right? It's the way we're doing it, though. The way I'm showing you how to do it today, right? And all I'm doing is I'm using the built-in date method or date class over and over again. So we play with the date class enough. I think we've got the date class. We did the math class with random. What else we need to do? Want me to push this? Okay, sure, push it. So I'll say added get current time function. Right, there we go. I'll push it. Thanks. Those people want to see that. We did a bunch of things here in one line, right? Like the confusing part about this is how could I have written this in a longer way, right? Well, this part, date.getHours is less than 10 is like saying something like this. Here, let me just comment these out. So if I was going to write this line, this first line out differently, I could do something like this. Here's the long way of doing it for those people who forgot how to do this the short way. If date.getHours, right, is less than 10, this is the long way. Okay, brackets, then hours. Right, so we'll say maybe var hours, we'll do the same thing as we did before, is equal to 0 plus date get hours. Right? Else, this is the long way. You asked me for the long way. This is the long way, right? Here we go. Else var hours is equal to plus date.getHours. So this is equivalent to this. I'm sorry, but this is way, way, way more compact. You're laughing. Why are you laughing? That's what it is. It's like, you know, this is called the ternary operator. And if you don't know what it is, for people who are watching the video, you can always look it up. It's called ternary operator. It's available in different languages, different computer science languages, right? So it's a conditional operator. That's what it is. If you look it up on Wikipedia, it tells you what it is. It tells you how it works, right? With the this is on Wikipedia, and how it works out. Okay, so it's called the ternary operator, and we use it a lot as a shorthand to writing all of this. This is a pain in the ass, especially when there's only one if else. If it's only one if else, this is where it works. If I have if else, if else, if else, if else, if else, I'm probably going to make a switch statement because that makes more sense. If I only have two values, though, if it's either this or that, like some kind of toggle, A or B, which one is it? Then I'm going to use this method, this ternary operator. And I'm going to use it for any language that I write in, whether I'm writing in Swift. Well, let me take that back. Swift is funny. They always change the rules on us. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is how it works. Maybe just to make it nice, if I was going to make this nice, and if I format my code, it'll split it up nicely so you can see how it looks, all right? But at the end of the day, this is what we did here. Okay, so we talked about this to death. I think you understand how the current time works. If I want to calculate, one thing I ask you is, what if I want to calculate the elapsed time, right? Elapsed time is different than the current timestamp, right? Can I subtract one time from another? That's a different thing. It's a different function altogether. So let's do that. So elapsed time, what I want to do is get the milliseconds, subtract them, and convert them back into a date. I'll then take that date and then convert it back into hours, minutes, and seconds, right? Or the seconds is really what I care about. How many seconds elapsed from my clicks, or milliseconds, or whatever you want to call it, seconds and milliseconds. Here we go again, right? Function, get elapsed time, right? I want to pass in a data object, right? But what I really want to do is I want to pass in my two data objects, right? So the last time, the old time, and the new time, right? So I want to pass two data objects in, the old time and the new time, and I want to calculate from those two times, right, the difference, because I can subtract milliseconds, no problem, right? So I want to say something like old time and new time, or or current time, I don't know. Yeah, I'll say new time. Who cares? Okay, so that's the get elapsed time. And what I want to return something like a time in seconds, whatever that time is, right? So I'm going to put in something like time in seconds. I don't know but this is what I want to do. Just return time in seconds yet. I don't know what it is. How does this work? So I want to say my old time is a time object, right? I want to assume that the time that I'm getting is a time object, old time and new time, right? And that I'm going to get them in milliseconds. I'm going to assume that they're milliseconds, right? So I'm going to say elapsed time then. So var elapsed time, I can know this, elapsed time, right, is equal to new time minus old time. I know that, right? Whatever my old time is, subtract it, right? Right now, it's a black box. I don't really know what old time and new time is. I just know that they're values in milliseconds. That's all I know, right? This is kind of funky with JavaScript because you really don't have any kind of sense of type. We don't have a type. When we're passing it for C#, we know the type, right? Right now, we don't know the type. We could be any. If you notice, if I hover over old time, it's any. New time, it's any. We don't know what it is. It could be strings, could be arrays, could be functions we're passing. We don't even know, right? And what I want to do is I want to get this elapsed time, and I want to convert it. I want to convert it back into a string that gives me seconds, right? So, okay. Maybe I want to call this get elapsed time in seconds. I don't know if I really want to be crazy. But that's what I want, all right? So my elapsed time in seconds. How do I calculate that? Well, my elapsed time in seconds is going to actually be equal to milliseconds, and I want a new data object. So I want to say var seconds is equal to new date, right? I'm going to pass in my seconds, my elapsed time, which is going to be milliseconds, right? And then I want to convert it. I want to convert my seconds, right, to seconds. Sorry, let me just make it more clear. Elapsed seconds, right? I want to pass in, instead of what I'm going to call it, elapsed seconds is equal to my whatever my elapsed time is, right? And I want to take my elapsed time, elapsed seconds. I want to make that equal to elapsed seconds dot get seconds. But of course, I can't return it that way because it'll return some funky thing here. So what do I want to return? Well, what I want to return is it's either going to be elapsed second. If elapsed seconds is less than 10, I can do it right in line here, which is really funky. I want to add the 0 plus my elapsed seconds get seconds, right? Or it's getting really messy, but I could do it this way. Just to give you guys an example of what this is, I just want to do one of these. Plus. All right, so that's the major function there. So that's what I'm returning. I'm returning a string. I'm returning a string that's either something that looks like this or something like this. Okay, so this is my little get elapsed time. Inside, you know what? I want to call it get, just because I'm going to be a stickler. Get elapsed time in seconds. So we know what it is, right? So get elapsed time in seconds, right? Makes more description. All right, so when I click onto it, I want to get the elapsed time in seconds somewhere else, like maybe underneath, right? And what I could do is the H2 tag is here, but remember, my dice result inner HTML can have more than just H2 tags. I can keep adding to this, right? So I can do something like plus a which I'm going to call it some kind of, I don't know, maybe I'll put it in a H2, an H3 tag. Here we go, an H3 tag. Inside my H3 tag, I want to put in my elapsed time in seconds. Right? So we'll call it elapsed time, elapsed seconds, right? Plus, I guess I didn't have to do this. Hold on. Elapsed seconds plus my elapsed time in seconds. I can get elapsed times. I need the old time and a new time. What's the old time and what's the new time? Uh-oh. I got to save those somewhere. Get elapsed time in seconds. Right? And I need to pass in old time and new time. I don't have an old time and new time. I only have my current time, which is my now, right? So this is my new time. So I have my some old, and then now I want to pass in there, and it's going to return my elapsed time in seconds plus I gotta close off that tag. Whew. Okay, I don't have old. How do I get old? Well, old, right, is got to be something that's held up here, so it's outside of my function block. So it's in this scope, in the function scope, in the IFI, so that'll keep track of what my old value is, right? So I want to do something like this: var old is equal to date, right? And what I want to say is now is equal to date, right? So when I clicked onto it, and once I've done this, once I've got my date and I calculate what old is, right? Now remember that I don't have a starting value, right? So my first old value is going to be lots of seconds. My first elapsed seconds. The elapsed seconds is the page loaded is what I'm going to get the first time I click on it. But after I click on it, I'm going to get that old value. How? Well, I'm going to go like this. After this dice roll is done, I'm going to set old. So old dot set time, or set date maybe. Set date to date as a number, right, to now. If I can do that. So what I'm saying is my old date is now my new date. And then when I come back here, my new date's going to be recalculated over and over again, right? Crazy, right? Crazy. Let's check this out and see if it works. This is where funky, like, you know, JavaScript, people hate JavaScript. Please don't hate JavaScript, right? So here's my 22 seconds since the page loaded. If I click on it again, uh-oh, I get not a number. That's what it is, right? Why? Because when I click on it again, right, my elapsed seconds is 22. Let me refresh this page. I'll show you what I'm talking about. First time I click on it, it's 1 second, right? This is okay, right? Because my elapsed seconds is equal to the time now minus the time old, right? So again, to troubleshoot this problem, we want to see what my, because I'm passing it in here, but when I pass this in, this is where it messes up, right? So I'm trying to set the date. My old is equal to now. Maybe what I really want to say is old is equal to now. What I really want to do, right? Old is equal to now, right? If this works now. So we're from. Yeah, so that's the problem, right? See how it messes up? Actually, it kind of works still, right? It's just I'm pressing it too fast, right? And you can tell it's like 2 seconds. So if I wait 1, 2, 3, you know, maybe like 4 seconds, whatever before, it'll work, right? Why? Because what I'm saying is my old time is equal to my current time, and my old time is being stored at the function level, right? Not at you know, within inside my dice roll method, right, or function. So therefore, it's going to reset every time, right? This now is being generated. Notice I'm calculating. I'm declaring these variables within this function scope. So they live. Sorry, let me go back. They should live and die. They don't, by the way. They should live and die within this function scope. This is why we start using let. Let is the new way of using of doing JavaScript as an example without worrying about scope. So we can kind of calculate the elapsed time. Now we've done lots of seconds, and I can calculate that it's 47 seconds between clicks, right? Hey, here's something. What about it when it goes really long, like beyond 60 seconds? It doesn't convert to minutes. It's just going to say number of seconds, and it'll say however many, hundreds of seconds that have gone by or whatever, right? So if I want to say the time, elapsed time, that's a different thing than elapsed seconds, right? And of course, you know what we're going to do, right? Take this time divided by 60, and if it's less than 1, then leave it as seconds. If it's greater than 1, you know, transpose the time, calculate the value. Like there's all kinds of stuff you can do with date and time, right? And by the way, there's a lot of other ways you can do this, because all I'm doing is calculating milliseconds, right? So who cares? Like instead of me converting it to elapsed seconds, I can do the whole time thing. How many, you know, hours, minutes, and seconds have gone by, right? 52. I didn't talk quite a minute there. Anyways, you know, so what do I mean by that? I mean, this function is get elapsed time in seconds. If I want a function that does get elapsed time, then what I can do is I can do the same thing, old time minus new time, but instead of getting seconds, I can do that whole calculation just like I did up here, get current time. Uh-oh, wait a minute, get current time. Look, I'm duplicating. So therefore, I can probably use this one. This is where I was going at in the first place. I can use the get current date, right, for both the current time and the new time, and I can use my get current date by passing in a date value, right? Because I'm getting a date value right here, right? My date value is going to be in milliseconds, right? So therefore, if I pass in a date value, and the date value is going to be in milliseconds now, right, then I should theoretically be able to break it down into date, time, and so on. I'm not going to go into that example right now, but I want you to see it so that way you can see how it works. So I think we've covered a couple things today to stop. We've talked about built-in methods, built-in objects that are part of JavaScript. And there's two very important ones we've covered today, right? With all joking aside, we've covered the date object, right? Creating new data objects, splitting it off, creating new times, and so on. And we've created another method, or the random numbers that we've been able to do. And we're doing it in one line, right? We're actually, you know, doing it here as I roll the dice. You can see that there's how many seconds have elapsed, you know, between clicks. You can figure this out. You can actually figure the whole timestamp. This is the actual time that we are right now, but I can also calculate it in hours, minutes, and seconds. How many hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds have elapsed as well, if you really care for that. Questions around this stuff? Using built-in functions. We come back, yeah? What is? Humanize. We'll talk about something else like that later. Look what they've done here, these crazy people, right? They've used an else if, else if, else if to look at the current date, right? Current day is get day. Is this the right way? Should I do it this way? No. There's different ways of doing it. This is one way that they talked about splitting off the date by January, February, March. Use the months. And what you can do is you've put together a today.getMonths. And what you can do is you can separate which day or time or months it is, right? There's lots of really cool things with date and time. When we come back next day, we get together, we can talk about things like the number class, right? Where we can convert things to string. That's basically one that we've used already, toString, or to other things. Also, what I want to talk about next time when we start talking about this, because this is all boring stuff, I'll be honest with you, this is all boring, right? Is the more important stuff, which I want to get into after this absolute value stuff with math functions and so on. Because you can, I mean, obviously you can figure out how to calculate stuff, right? Convert it to a number and then calculate. Is this stuff starting at about slide 33, how to create new objects. Now, we've done this before in a very short form, but this is the stuff that's all around making your own customized objects. We have some built-in objects. So far, we've looked at date and math, and I want to use the next one, which is customized objects here next time. And remember that by the end of the week, you're going to do a little lab that's all around object-oriented programming, right? And we're going to talk about making your own class by the end of the week, all right? So think about that. That's coming by Friday. And also by Wednesday, when I see you again, you'll get your assignment number 3, okay? Questions before we go? Have a great one. Take care. Thank you.